Jeff Songster currently resides in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with his husband and biggest crab supporter, Josh, and two golden retrievers, Owen and Betty. He currently serves as the head of customer service at Diggs, a premium pet brand. In his free time, you can find Jeff visiting the many theme parks across the country and even the world, planning his next cruise, or watching the many hermit crab videos on YouTube. Jeff has been an avid hermit crab advocate since 2004, when he received his first land hermit crab from his 7th grade science teacher. Since his days with 2 crabs and a 10-gallon tank, he is now an adopter for the Land Hermit Crab Owners Society, where he houses 18 crabs of 3 different species in his 300-gallon build, all of which have been adopted from other crab parents. Jeff also proudly assists with the CrabCon giveaways and Land Hermit Crab Owners Society Calendar Crab of the Month. Jeff was originally very nervous and apprehensive about building a topper for his tank, but once he saw how much his crabs loved the additional vertical space, he's been passionate about helping others realize how accessible these toppers can be. In addition to today's talk, Jeff will be coming to you live following the presentation to answer any questions that you may have about building a topper for your own crabitat. Please welcome Jeff Songster.
Hello everyone and welcome to CrabCon 2022. I hope you guys have had a great time so far with all of the different presentations and all of the different speakers. I'm Jeff Songster, coming from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and today I'm going to be presenting on tiny toppers, making the most out of your crabitat space. So before we jump in, I wanted to give a little brief presentation on some of the pros and cons, and then also some safety reminders of how to safely install a topper to your tank. So in today's presentation, you will see myself use some sharp objects, including saws, scissors, etc. If you are under the age of 18, please consult a parent or guardian before you use these materials. We want to make sure that you and your crabs are safe. Regardless of your age, please make sure that you are practicing safety first, which means you may want to use goggles or safety glasses when you are using the saw, and I'll explain why we use a saw later on today. And like I mentioned, it's really important that we're also incredibly safe to our crabs. That's why we're all here. So if you are using silicone to attach different decor items to your topper, be sure that you allow it to completely cure before introducing it to your crabs. Now, the best rule of thumb is if you can no longer smell it, then it's cured. Most people say at least 24 hours to have it dry overnight. I was extra safe when I did my topper that you can see behind me, and I let it air out for a week before I attached it to the tank. But again, really, you just don't want to be able to smell any of the silicone. If you can't smell it, then it is most likely safe. And with the silicone, it's incredibly important to remember that you're using 100% silicone with no mold inhibitors, though that can be extremely dangerous with the crabs. So just double check that you are purchasing 100% silicone. A few reminders is that everybody's crabitat is going to be very different, right? Depending on where you live, geographically could be a very humid climate. Like for me, I'm in South Florida. It's very humid and hot year round. So a variety of factors are going to go into what materials you are going to need for your topper. Now, what I would recommend, and what Lycos recommends, is that you have a AccuRite temperature and humidity gauge to monitor those conditions within your topper, so that way you can best set up your topper for success and make sure that your crabs are safe. You might want to make sure that it's staying around that 80% humidity range so that they can safely breathe, and 80 degrees in temperature so that they are thriving. Some reminders on the topper is, remember, the topper is not designed for you to have additional crab space. And what I mean by that is when we use the one hermit crab per 10-gallon rule, so if you have four hermit crabs, 40-gallon tank would most likely be appropriate. What we're really talking about is the amount of molting space that that crab has. So in order to safely molt, the crab needs about 8 to 10 inches of substrate, which we recommend 5 part sand, 1 part eco earth. And of course, you are not going to be putting any substrate in your topper, so it's not going to allow to introduce any additional hermit crabs if you're looking for additional space. So if you're looking for additional space to introduce new crabs, you are going to want to expand your crabs length or width-wise instead. Height would not be a great option for you. And also, just a reminder, do not put necessities into the topper. Keep those accessible in the base tank. Crabs may take a little bit of time to find the topper. I know I had some of my crabs went up right away and found it and absolutely loved it. And then there were some crabs that maybe just didn't quite get it. So we want to make sure that they have all of their necessities. So well-rounded diet, fresh water, salt water, green sand, worm castings, all of that good stuff is going to still be in the base tank so that they can access those without having to go into the topper. Now, that being said, the topper is a great way to introduce different foraging items like leaves and flowers and other things that they can kind of climb and chew on that are extra and won't impact like their daily life. Some benefit of the topper, like I mentioned, it's perfect for enrichment. Hermit crabs absolutely love to climb and explore in the wild. Last year I learned in CrabCon that there are some crabs that will grab a shell in addition to the one that they currently have on. They will take it up into a tree, find a nice area, and they will change shells in the tree. They will absolutely climb as high as you let them. My tank is about 4 feet tall, and they go straight up to the top, and they hang out there all day, no problem. It allows for some additional hiding space. So as I mentioned before, it's not going to be great for additional molting space, but what it will do is it will allow you to create some additional hiding space. And I'll show you some of the materials in a little bit that I use to create like some cocoa condos is what I like to call them. I use some cork as well to create some additional hiding space and get that off of the floor. And I found that it helped me with my high humidity. Like I mentioned, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, so it's hot and humid here year round. And I had a 150-gallon aquarium that was always at like 90-95% humidity. And I found that once I put on my topper to it, it kind of diluted some of that. And what's great about the Exoterras is they actually have a strip that can be, there's like some ventilation in it. So depending upon your needs, again, very specific for your crab habitat, you're going to want to make sure that you are paying attention to your different ranges. You can keep some of them open, keep them all closed, whatever is going to be best for you and your crabs. There are going to be some risks, and I don't want to, maybe not cons, but just things to look out for by using a topper. It will change the condition of your base tank, right? You are adding more area into your tank and there's more room for variability. Like I said, my humidity in my base tank dropped, which for me was a great thing, right? Mine now sits at 80 to 85% comfortably, which is absolutely perfect. But those of you who are already at 80 to 85% may want to keep an eye out and make sure that your humidity in your base tank is staying the same. This process is not for those who are incredibly impatient and want the space right now. The process of attaching I have a large Exoterra, took about a month from beginning to end, just the way that I planned it out, the way that I wanted things to dry and cure before I attached them into the tank. And I just wanted to make sure that I had everything extremely safe and well thought out before I attached it. And now, of course, it's not going to take everyone a month of time to do that, but it will take some time and some planning. Because the topper is going to sit on top of your tank, and of course you want the crabs to be able to go up into the tank, you may need to have a custom cut acrylic lid for your base tank. I had to cut a little piece that was about 18 inches wide, so that way my humidity would be safe in my base tanks. And of course, safety during the construction process. Again, I can't stress enough to make sure that you guys are practicing safe construction. Some of the materials that I am going to use, that you'll see me use today, is a completed base tank. It's really important that before you add on a new topper, just make sure that your base tanks are in a good place, that your crabs are comfortable. Or if you don't have crabs yet, this is even better. That way you don't have to disturb them at all. So if you're doing a new build, this is fantastic to get started. You can use an Exoterra topper, which is what I have here, which is what most of us crab people do, is use an Exoterra tank, and I'll show you why in a little bit. It is totally possible to use an aquarium as a topper. Again, I have a couple examples that I'll show you in a little bit. But I really recommend the Exoterra. They've just been absolutely perfect. I've had no issues. You're going to want to think about what decor you want in your topper. So I use cork flats for mine and attach cocoa huts directly to the cork flat, and then have the cork flat attached to the tank. You can plants, vines, cholla logs, cork rounds would be a great option. Those little half coconuts are a great option to put some like different foraging materials. Get creative, get fun. That's part of my favorite process about building a topper is I got to be super creative with it and let my artistic side show through. You're going to want, again, 100% silicone with no mold inhibitors and a caulking gun. You're going to find that you're going to use a lot more silicone than you think you will during this process. I know I was like ordering it almost every day when I was building my topper, or building out my entire 300-gallon build, really. But you're also going to want foam weather stripping. I have a great example I'll show you guys in a little bit. And this is so when you flip the Exoterra or the aquarium on top of your base tank, you're going to line it with the weather stripping, and that will keep all of that heat and humidity in, and also keep the crabs safe from being able to escape. You're also going to want duct tape. I use black duct tape. That way the duct tape kind of blends into the aquarium edges and isn't extremely visible. I used a Gorilla duct tape that is incredibly strong. Again, I'm in Florida, so the humidity can kind of get to different things here, and I found that the Gorilla tape worked out really, really well. And you're going to want a saw to make the decor flush. For us, we used just a hand saw. If you have like an electric saw, even better. It's going to make your process so much easier. Just again, make sure that you're really safe with that during that process. I wanted to, before we jump in and start building the topper, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends at Josh's Frogs. They were so kind and donated this Exoterra tank that I am going to be decorating for you guys today. It is a Exoterra 12 by 12 by 12. So again, today's topic is tiny topper, so I'm not going to be building a huge one. I want to make sure that you guys have the resources to be able to build a fantastic tank no matter the size. So this 12 by 12 by 12 is a great option to add some hiding. It's super cute. It's really small, doesn't take up too much space. And with this, I partnered with Grace over at Josh's Frogs and helped her create some terrarium topping kits. And they are available now. So just search terrarium topper on Josh's Frogs, and you'll see all the different materials that we're going to use today, or at least a big majority of them, so that you can create your own topper at home. So let's get building. I will see you guys in just a moment, and we will get started on building our little topper. Okay, welcome to my kitchen. Here I have two different aquariums with me. I have my Exoterra, and then I also have a 10-gallon, just a regular aquarium that I got from a pet store. So for the toppers, you definitely can use either tank. You can use one of these Exoterra toppers, or you can use the aquarium. I went with the Exoterra topper on my tank because it has this nifty little front door which opens up. And this allows you to clean your topper, access it, put in some more foraging materials, redecorate it, etc. If you are going to use something like the aquarium and you turn it upside down, you're going to have to enter your tank, the base tank, and kind of reach back up into it, which can be extremely difficult to do. It's not impossible, just don't recommend it as much as I would something like this Exoterra. So this Exoterra here in front of me is a 12 by 12 by 12, and it's incredibly important that you are measuring your base tank to make sure that when you flip this upside down on top of it, it's going to fit it with a really good seal, so that way it holds in that heat and humidity for you and your crabs. So we are going to go ahead and get set up and get these tanks out of the way so we can get building. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now that we have our tanks out of the way, you can see some of the materials that I'm going to be using to be building today's topper. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, my favorite part about building a topper is that you can get super creative and really design it any way that you'd like. So I build my toppers in a couple different ways. I like to build the inside part first and then slide them into place into the topper. So I have here a couple pieces of cork flat that I'm going to be attaching some of this decor to, and then I'm going to attach this cork flat directly on the inside of our topper. So I have a couple pieces of that cork flat, like I mentioned. I have a vine that I'm going to kind of loop around the topper to create a lot of climbing space. I have some plants as well to, again, kind of create some hiding spaces, some climbing spaces. This one goes with our vine. And to attach the plants together and keep them sturdy, I also have some green zip ties, come in good handy. And then I also have a couple of different coconuts here. So we have a hanging coconut that's gonna serve as a coconut hide. And what I will do is I will put some of this sphagnum moss into the coconut hide and create like a little cocoa condo for them. And I'm going to attach that directly to the coconut flat, or I'm sorry, the cork flat. So what we're going to do here in just a minute is we are actually going to saw off the back of the coconut with this handsaw here. Again, safety first, so that way it gets nice and flat. When it gets nice and flat, then we'll go ahead and silicone it and attach it directly here to our cork flat. And we are going to do the same thing with this half coconut here. I love these little half coconuts to use them for little foraging items, like little mixes that we get from all of our different providers. Attach it right here to the cork flat as well, and we'll put it right in. So we are gonna go ahead and get sawing, and we'll see you after that is done. Okay, so we're getting ready to saw our first half coconut. And what we did is we kind of looked for the side that was already like the most straight. So you can see that is going to be our straightest edge, so least amount of work is always a big win there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and saw it right here and create kind of a flat line. So that way we can silicone it directly to our cork flat. So we are going to get sawing away. All right, we just finished sawing our first half coconut. So you can see we have a really nice flat edge there. And we'll be able to attach with the silicone and put it right onto that cork flat and fill it with some moss and maybe some other goodies for the crabs to kind of forage and find through. So one coconut down, two more to go. And these ones are a little bit more difficult. They're a little harder of a coconut. These ones are actually, these are bird hideys, I think is how they are found on Amazon or at Chewy. But I've repurposed them for the crabs and they absolutely love them. So we're gonna get sawing away on these and be back in just a little bit. All right, so you can see we have finished sawing our second coconut here, one of the hanging coconuts. So this piece is going to be nice and flat for us to silicone all the way around and stick right on that cork flat. And of course, no piece goes to waste. This is an excellent little food dish to do some like calcium or some dry food or dried shrimp would be a really great option that you can keep in your substrate and keep your food off of the sand. So we'll definitely be holding on to this piece and using it for a food dish. And we are going to get to work on our second coconut over here. And we will... All right, I wanted to show you guys what the topper looks like. So as I mentioned before, this is the Exoterra 12 by 12 by 12 terrarium. And what we're gonna do is actually turn it upside down. So right now it is right side up. This is how it comes. It comes with one of those screen lids and it has 4 of these little screen lid locks. You're just going to twist them just like so. And you'll be able to take off your screen lid very easily. And now this will actually become your bottom, and this is going to be the top. When we weatherproof, we are going to want to take off these locks so that way they become flush. And in order to do that, you kind of have to just figure out which way they will pop off the easiest, which is usually in between locked and unlocked. And then they do just kind of pop off. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. And you can see it's very easy. Just make sure that they are not locked or in the unlocked position, otherwise you could damage the inside of that track. And there we go. And now our topper is ready and we are going to start with our cork flats and getting those siliconed. Okay, we have finally gotten the backs of our coconut flush, as you can see, and ready to be silicone. So now it takes a couple of minutes to just plan everything, because once you do silicone it in, it won't be able to be changed. So you want to make sure that whatever you are putting into your topper, you are really happy with, and kind of just play around a little bit. So as I mentioned before, I have 2 cork flats here, and I think what I'm going to do is put them on opposite sides in my topper. So I think what I'm going to do is put the coconut huts at the top like this, and then maybe this flat coconut somewhere around here on the bottom for them to kind of forage into. And then I'll probably drape one of the plants around here for them to kind of climb around and be able to get into the coconut and be able to climb around. So I'm gonna play around with it for just a little bit, and then I will show you how to silicone it here in just a moment. I have my coconut here, my first coconut and my first cork round. And what I'm going to do to prep the coconut going onto the cork flat is just trace the outside of the flat coconut here with silicone. It's oddly satisfying. You want to be quite generous when it comes to the silicone. Okay. And once you have like a good outline just like that, you're going to go ahead and press it onto the cork flat. Now what I try to do is I find a place where there's a lot of raises, that way like from the cork, that way it can kind of hold on to that silicone. So what I'm going to do is stick it right about here. And that looks really good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in at the sides here and silicone the coconut directly onto the cork flat and kind of fill in some of the gaps just to make sure that it gets really nice and adhered. You guys might know the phrase less is more, but that is not true when it comes to the silicone. And if you want it to last for a really long time, you want to be very generous, and don't worry, it'll dry mostly clear. So I'm going to finish siliconing this to the cork flat, and then I will be right back. Okay, we have fully siliconed our first coconut to the cork flat, and you'll see I went ahead and also siliconed the bottom piece of wood here, so that way there's some stability when the crabs are climbing up into it. It's not just going to swing freely. And we are going to now wait about 24 to 48 hours for it to dry before we silicone this cork flat into the Exoterra topper. So we are going to get started on our second cork flat now. Okay, we are back through the magic of editing. That was only a couple of seconds for you guys, but it's been about 24 to 48 hours for us over here as we let some of our cork flats cure and dry. So you can see they are nice and secure now. They are not going anywhere. So we have 2 different flats that we're going to be working with and putting them into this topper here. So important piece to remember when you guys are building your topper is remember the open space is actually the bottom. So this is upside down. So when you're building it, it's going to be a little awkward because you are going to be basically building it upside down. So it's going to seem wrong at first. So as I mentioned, this is kind of the fun part where you get to be a little creative and kind of figure out what you want to do. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes trying out a few different, 3 different areas of where things will go. And once I get the final result, I will loop you guys back in. So let's get decorating. Let's see what we can do. All right, so I think that this is where I want my 2 pieces of cork flat to lay. One thing I recommend purchasing are these spring clamps. They've been extremely helpful in letting the silicone cure and holding it nice and tight to the tank while it does cure. The ones that I got had these nice rubber grips on them so that the metal wasn't scratching the tank. So you can see I've kind of held my flats into place. They're not siliconed yet because I'm still kind of playing with the design and kind of toying with where I want everything to go, but it's gonna kind of hold it in place until I'm ready to silicone it, and then it will hold it into place when it is drying. So what I'm going to do now is I have this vine, and this vine I kind of want to use as a way for them to be able to climb, obviously, but also get from coconut to coconut and be able to enter those cocoa huts really easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the suction cups on the vine, find good places for the vine to sit. And then I'm actually going to mark in a dry erase marker on the outside of the tank where the little cups, the suction cups go. And that way I can silicone these into place. Totally optional. You can definitely just use the regular suction cup and not silicone them into place. I prefer having things very permanent so that I can be very hands-off with my crabs and kind of just let them do their own thing. Again, totally optional to you. So I will silicone the suction cups, and then I will also likely suction cup a couple of the plants that I have here. And what I'm going to do is mark them with a dry erase marker so that way I won't lose any of my spots. So I'm gonna go get that. I have my vine in place now in the topper. So I'm gonna go through with my green dry erase marker just on the outside, just to remember where I'm going to put my little dollops of silicone to help keep that into place. Okay, so what I did on the back of this cork flat, since it's very uneven, I basically went around all of the raised surfaces, especially on the edges, to make sure that it would stay nice and attached to the tank. And so I used all of those raised edges to my advantage and covered them in silicone. And now we're gonna go ahead and attach it. So I'm gonna be very careful not to really get anything on the tank until it's ready to be pressed up against it. And then once I have it in place, I can basically just smush it up against the wall. And it has been another 24 hours since we have put in our last little modular piece, of the cork flat. So it is nice and secure. It is not going absolutely anywhere. That thing is absolutely stuck on. So all of the pieces that I'm going to silicone are dry and ready to go. So what I usually do at this point is go ahead and flip it into the actual direction that you want to use it, so you can kind of visualize your new topper. So here we go. So this is how the topper will look on top of the tank, and you can see this is the door that is going to open, and it'll open up directly to you, just like this. Super easy to go in. So one of the reasons I chose the layout that I did, putting this one up front, was this half coconut bowl is really easy to reach and put in some like foraging items for the crabs, and be able to kind of change that out and clean it rather than putting it all the way in the back. So put that up front on purpose. So I'm going to add the final little details, which are going to be a couple of plants, maybe a vine if I find a way that I like to place it in there, and we'll be back with you in just a couple of minutes. Okay, and after a little bit of work, I have what I think is the completed topper, kind of like how I would imagine it. One thing that I really love to do is put up the vines all the way to the very top, and I'll give you guys a close-up here in just a second. And what that does is that allows the crabs to really climb all the way up to the very top. Use the most of your space. Again, tiny toppers to make the most of your crab habitat space. Use every inch of it for them to explore, forage, climb, and get excited about their little topper. And as I talked about a little bit ago, we are going to go ahead and donate this to CrabCon and put it up for a silent auction. There's going to be more details to come on how you can actually bid for that in my upcoming Q&A. So stay tuned, and I'll be coming to you guys live to answer any questions that you guys may have about making your own topper for your own aquarium. I know that it seems a little daunting, but it is definitely not as hard as it seems. It's definitely can be done, adds a lot of really great space. This tank specifically is 12 by 12 by 12. So if you are interested in putting in a bid for it, just make sure that it would either fit your tank or that you're ready to custom cut some acrylic or glass to fit in the gaps. So if you have a 20-gallon high, a 20-gallon long, a 25-gallon, or a 29-gallon, this tank can fit in pretty perfectly on top. Again, you may have to custom cut some acrylic, but those are tanks with 12-inch widths, which would fit really nicely. This would fit really nicely on top of. So if you have one of those tanks and you're looking to add a little bit more space, this could be a really good option for you. So now that all of the decor is placed, we do have one last final step. So you can see that I flipped it back around so that the bottom is facing up. And this is the part where I was probably the most confused and how to actually securely attach it to your tank. So I have a couple of things in front of me. So I have this is weather insulation seal, and it's like a little spongy material, and it's adhesive on one side that will stick to the topper. And I'm going to grab some scissors so that I can cut this to the appropriate length and show you how I would attach it. Now that I have my scissors, what you'll do is you'll just measure it to the appropriate length. Take off the adhesive on the one side. And then you're going to stick it right on the rim of the topper. And what this will do is this is going to hold in all of your heat and humidity, make sure that there aren't any air gaps for any of that to escape so that you can make sure that your topper has really great conditions for your crabs. So you will continue to do that around all sides of the tank. And then when you are ready to flip it upside down and attach it to your base tank, you're going to want to use duct tape. I have Gorilla duct tape here, it's black. And what I do is take just a little bit of the duct tape, and again, you will go through the entire width and length of the topper, and half of the tape will go on the topper just like this, and the other half is what will connect to your base tank. I like to use black because it seamlessly kind of blends them into place and you can't even really tell that I'm using tape on my topper. So that is how you would attach it to your tank. The last steps would really just be to add your humidity and temperature gauge and then add any lighting. I think any aquarium lighting that you use for your tank works really well. I also use Philips Hue light bulbs, and I found that this play bar fits really nicely on top of the toppers. You can see it's like almost a perfect fit to sit on top. And I create some fake sunrises and sunsets for my crabs each day. So this has been pretty useful. So highly recommend the Philips Hue if you are not using those already. Thanks. For you. So I will see you guys in my Q&A coming up next. Thank you so much for joining me today on Tiny Toppers, making the most out of your crabbitat space. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.